What is going on, guys? JFC here. Big questions right now about what the best players in FIFA 23 actually are, right? After this new patch, the shorter guys with the better dribbling stats and the non-lengthy players seemingly have gotten a buff. There's a lot of questions right now that the community has, right? Like, does acceleration type matter at all? Is explosive going to be the new meta? Is lengthy dead? What stats are the most important? Does pace matter? You know, you can go down the list. People are still trying to figure out what the heck is the meta of this game. So I played like all my weekend league games, played qualifying, obviously played some division rivals, and I tried to figure out what is the best acceleration type, what are the most important stats, what are the best players in the game, you know, just going down the list and trying to figure out what the heck is the meta of this game. And the first question I think that most people probably want to know about is explosive the best acceleration type now in the game? And the answer to that question is probably. There's no real one guaranteed answer for what the best in the game is, in my opinion. They're actually all pretty fairly balanced, but I've used this Joe Cole card, I've used this Neymar card, and I can pretty confidently say that explosive got a huge buff. It definitely did. And this Neymar card is probably one of my favorite cards I've now used in this entire FIFA. Because that little slowdown of the dribbling got nerfed, explosive players feel extremely fast, and Neymar actually felt pretty incredible in terms of pace, right? He always feels great because of his dribbling, but pace was something that going into this patch made him not the best, honestly. I'd used him before that. Him and Messi kind of felt similar in terms of just, they didn't have that max pace. Whereas now, I'm not really noticing that almost at all with this Neymar card. And I kind of want to say the dribbling, honestly, is just like better in general. I don't know if it's post-patch, maybe it was a couple patches ago, but this Neymar's dribbling felt insane. Not as good as last year, of course, but as good as it really has yet during this entire FIFA cycle. Yeah, this Neymar card was insane. Side note too, shot power being 79 kind of used to be a concern for me. At the same time, I like tap circle with half my shots this year. I feel like no power on anything, so shot power is not nearly as important as it has been in the past. And Neymar is exceptional, right? Joe Cole, I did notice Joe Cole being a lot better than his regular hero card. I think partly because I use the other hero card, I think pre-patch, and this one's post-patch, and this one feels like miles faster. I know this one has a pace boost, but at the same time, it feels just way, way faster. This Joe Cole was really nice to use because of that. So are explosive players the new meta? I would say most likely yes, but I would say that I don't want to fill my entire team explosive players, and we'll get into why in a little bit. The second question everybody's kind of wanting to know is, are lengthy players dead, right? And the answer to that question is definitely no. Definitely no. Lengthy players are still, they pretty much feel exactly the same as they always have, right? I used Inform Erling Haaland this weekend, and nothing about this card changed by any means. He was getting crazy jam on over the top through balls because of his just like 6'5" frame. His pace felt insane, and nothing about this card changed, in my opinion, at all post-patch. Socrates I use as well. Game and Architect, got him with the lengthy. Didn't feel any difference on this card at all either way as well. Post-patch, still felt pretty fast. 82 pace and no pace boost. Like, clearly lengthy is still good because he still felt fast. And we go down the list of like DMs and center backs, right? Rafa Marquez was a CDM I used this weekend, and he's lengthy. Antonio Rudiger, I use as well this weekend, lengthy. Kyle Walker, lengthy. But I will say in your back line is that lengthy players, probably at center back, are your most important. I would say that I use Carlos Alberto, who's controlled, and Rudiger, who's lengthy. And I think Rudiger they have the same pace stat, right? 82 pace, 82 pace. Even though Rudiger has a higher sprint speed, but he has less acceleration, Carlos Alberto has 90 acceleration and Rudiger has 80. So you would think Carlos Alberto might feel a little bit faster at short distances, and I just didn't notice that really at all. I think Rudiger was just simply faster than Carlos Alberto. I think the reason because of that is not just because of lengthy, but also 99 sprint speed. I think sprint speed is just obviously a more important pace stat than acceleration is this year. It used to be acceleration was more important than sprint speed. I want to say it might be the opposite this year. I think sprint speed itself is probably the most important pace stat compared to acceleration. So yeah, I think lengthy on your center backs you can't go wrong with, but it's not the end of the world. I think the pace stat is the most important stat, even more so than like any lengthy or explosive player. Kyle Walker and Cancelo, one is controlled, one is lengthy. And I do notice Kyle Walker being faster, but also at the same time, Walker has higher pace. So I think if you put a controlled right back and they're the same pace, I wouldn't think there's too much of a difference. So I don't think it matters too much. And then at CDM, Rafa Marquez is lengthy. What I will say is CDM's kind of similar to center back. I think just having a bigger CDM is important this year because of strength, right? We're gonna get into that in a second. But a CDM that's strong and tall and, you know, lengthy if you want it to be is wonderful. So we've talked about explosive players and lengthy players a lot. Well, what about control players, right? You know, are they meta? Are they not very good because they're like in between both? And honestly, what I can say is they're still great. What I actually like about controlled players a little bit more than explosive players, in just this one instance, is that they tend to have strength. Like Eto'o has 78 strength, and I noticed that he has more strength than a Joe Cole, a Neymar would. And strength is very important in this game. But I think controlled and explosive are very similar, but I would lean explosive just by a little margin, just simply because of the fact that usually explosive players have like insane dribbling stats. So usually those cards will just always be a little bit better in FIFA. But by no means are controlled players not good. Like, I do think they actually struck a pretty decent balance with all three of these acceleration types now, which I do appreciate, because it did not make lengthy bad, right? If it made lengthy players like feel like they did last year, it would have completely, like, I would have been really turned off by that. But they did not do that, and it just made explosive players better. So I do gotta appreciate EA on doing that, because it does make the game a little bit more fun. You can use everybody, right? You literally can use everybody. Every single card, every single height, every single pace is kind of possible to use. Sure, some are gonna be better than others, but I think that they're at least possible, right? The next question is like, what are the most important stats in the game? Is pace the most important now? Does strength not matter anymore? And what I can say to that is really, EA have once again done a fairly good job of making it balanced. Like, pace is important, shooting is fairly important, passing is fairly important, dribbling and physical is also pretty important this year. But I will say for sure, strength is always going to be good no matter what position you're in, especially the back line, obviously, and CDM. I think strength, having a high strength CDM is crazy important. And same with like one of my strikers. I want one of my strikers to have crazy strength. I've noticed that a lot. Haaland with 98 strength and 94 aggression is at 6'5" is just not fair. Center backs just cannot handle this guy. So high strength is still wonderful, and I'm just very glad that that's still a thing, because it's been a while since we've had strength mean something. I think it's been like, what, FIFA 19 and FIFA 17 prior to that, where strength was like, oh yeah, a card with 97 strength is like, oh damn, 97 strength is crazy. This year they're doing that. So I do got to give EA some credit for that. The gameplay is obviously not perfect by any means, but the balance of like what stats are super important overall is probably a lot better than the previous years. You know, the previous years, if a card didn't have insane agility and balance, we were like, oh, this card sucks. Now this year, it's like, oh, it's not really a guarantee that that's going to be the case, right? It's just not. But I do got to give EA some credit for that. So I'd set my team up. What I would ideally like is like probably 2 lengthy center backs. Fullbacks doesn't matter as much. If I'm using a CDM or 2 CDMs, I would like them to be tall, at least one of them. Strong is very, very important to me. Like, I have Marquez and Valverde is strong, but he's not like obviously a Rafa Marquez, right? I have Valverde and Marquez, and I like that duo a lot. And other than that, I think explosive and control players and the attack is like fine all over the place, and you don't have to use lengthy players if you don't want to. But in my opinion, what I have right now on this team is Haaland and Eto'o up top, and Eto'o's controlled, Haaland is lengthy. And having a guy like Haaland in your team who's lengthy, extremely tall, wins everything in the air, and extremely strong, having a card like this in your team is crazy good. My ideal situation is going to be a lengthy striker. If you're in a striker plus winger formation, I think explosive outside wingers and a lengthy striker is like perfect. Or in my case, in a 4-2-2-2, a lengthy / really tall, really strong striker and an explosive or controlled guy next to him with high pace is pretty perfect. So yeah, I think that's going to be the best look for like team building coming over probably the course of the entire rest of the game, honestly. And the last question we got is like, who are the best players in FIFA now, right? Like, who are they? If all 3 acceleration types are good, what cards are separated from the rest, right? And I'm going to make a video about this very shortly, because I'm going to try out every single hero card, right? I've tried out Joe Cole, liked him a lot. I like Rafa Marquez too. I think he's probably a better center back. I'm going to try out every single World Cup hero card from Team 2, make a video on that, and then talk about the best players in FIFA post-patch. But I will tell you right now, Neymar is going to be on that list. But I will say, as like a preview, I think custom animations, cards like Neymar and Messi and like Foden, Sterling, those guys have like custom dribbling animations. I think that'll separate. I think traits are going to separate a lot too. Outside foot and finesse are like wonderful traits this year. I think a nice combination of dribbling and strength is going to be a really, really important thing too. So yeah, we'll get into all that in a few days, because I'm going to make a whole video on that. So yeah, if there's anybody here, if you have any other opinions or anything that I'm like missing, let me know, because I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting to talk about, and I'm sure there's things I forgot to say. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below, because, you know, do you like the balance? Or do you think lengthy players are not very good now? Do you think explosive players are still not the best? I want to hear what you guys have to say, because I'm very curious. With all that being said, I love you guys. Thank you guys for supporting me every single day. I'll see you guys in the next video very, very soon. Peace.